Hello, my name is Luca, and I'd like to bring you some light. Inflation, deflation, digital dollars, the World Economic Forum, and the Great Reset. Today, I'd like to unpack my overall thesis for macroeconomics. Let's get it! So I'm going to try to provide an overview quickly that kind of makes sense for why I feel the way that I do about where we are and where we are going from a macroeconomic perspective. In the future, we will look at more specific things, but this is just kind of an overview. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the World Economic Forum. Okay, this is straight from their website, and this is literally their mission. Okay. The forum engages the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. Established in 1971, it's independent, impartial, and not tied to any special interests. That's what it says in its mission statement. However, I would tend to agree based on its list of partners. Maybe they are impartial to their own members. But none of these members are human beings. They are all of the largest commercial organizations that exist in the world, the largest businesses. Okay. And this is straight from their website. This is just their partners. I challenge you to think of any business. It's on here. Okay, like Amazon, Apple. When you go to Google, they don't just have one Google. They got both of them. They got two Googles. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's all the Googles is two Googles. But just think of a company and it's probably going to be here. You know, let's like just check and see about Walmart. Oh yeah, Walmart's there. You know, I mean, so you know when you like try to think of something specific and then your mind goes blank. That's where I was at there. So how about Nintendo? Is Nintendo on there? Is there any hope for this world? Nintendo's not on here, guys. We're okay. They don't have Nintendo. Like, we can know when we get to the other side. At least we're going to have Mario, you know, like, he's going to be having our back. They got the Sony group, though. And they got, they got Microsoft. So they got the Xbox, man. They got the PlayStation, but they don't have Nintendo, okay? Like, keep fighting, little guy. Mario, you're going to win. You're going to win. Having looked at the partners that the World Economic Forum has there, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that they are the most powerful businesses in the world, and unified in the way that they are, they have the ability to form our overall macroeconomic direction as a human race. And, that really takes some soul searching in whether or not that's a direction we feel like that's where we want to go as a human race. And if it's not, we need to make sure that we're taking a stand and being aware and fighting this every step of the way. But let's check out this video. So you got this little happy music going on in the background saying, maybe in 50 years you won't own anything. You won't own yourself. You won't have to think about it. Everything will be dictated to you and you'll rent everything. But guess what? Somebody's going to own it. These huge businesses that are trying to make it acceptable for everybody else to not own things, they're going to be the ones that own it all. Let's move on. So this next section I actually had to go to the Internet Archive for, because shortly after the World Economic Forum released this video, there was such a protest that they were forced to remove it. But fortunately, the Internet Archive is here to make sure that things are remembered that people try to make us forget. And I'm going to make sure to toss them a donation so that this continues to exist, so that the truth can stay out there. You won't even have to like interact with people for real, just maybe through a screen, and just everything will be rented and delivered and automatically handled. The World Economic Forum seems to be a very powerful and influential organization, and more likely than not, they will make their agenda happen. But it's important that you're aware of them and you decide if there's any point in which you're not going to be willing to go with that agenda. However, having that in the back of our mind and our long-term outcome as a result of the influence of the World Economic Forum, we still need to be able to have a short to mid to long-term, like long-term 5 years, not long-term 10 years, ability to read where we are heading from a macroeconomic perspective. So I want to try to break that down a little bit. This following piece of evidence is just evidence of our reduction in productivity. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it basically says that we've added 7.4% in hours worked, and it's only resulted in 1.8% more productivity. So this seems to be the trend of late, is a reduction in productivity. And I think if you ask anybody who is experienced in the workforce right now, they would probably tell you that the latest influx of new labor is the worst they've ever seen. But let's move on and look at another powerful piece of information, which would be the U.S. national debt clock. And historically speaking, whenever an economy, a country's economy, has debt to GDP greater than 100%, so that's your debt compared to your gross domestic product. Whenever it's higher than 100%, you're usually in a really bad trouble. And we have recently risen to almost 126% over GDP. Our total debt is $30 trillion. Okay? The amount of money that is, the amount of human labor and energy that represents right now in our world is absurd. The debt per taxpayer, $230,000. Okay, this is an unsustainable system where our debt only goes up, and you will eventually not be able to serve the interest on your debt, or you will have to continually lower interest rates to the effect of you have dollars in your bank account, instead of earning percentage positively to that balance, you would actually have negative impact by percent to that balance over time, because we'll end up having to go to negative interest rates in order to sustain all of the debt that we have taken on and continue to take on. The government has the money printer and doesn't have to balance the budget. And honestly, it's a very difficult system to balance, because you're constantly cycling between inflation and deflation, and the effects on the common citizen are quite severe. So I think this leads into the next topic, which I would want to talk about, which is digital dollar. So the federal government has already admitted they're working on a digital dollar. And this is being, digital currencies in general are being worked on around the world. It's going to hit the public all at once. China's already leading the way on this, and the United States is kind of in the undecided phase, because we really can't get anything done with our government. But in the original bill that was drafted as stimulus payments for the citizens during the beginning of the sickness, don't want to get censored. At the beginning of the sickness, the bill originally featured the establishment of the digital dollar. And it would have worked by giving, people wallets to get their money, and it would end up sending them a digital dollar. But the real direction of the digital dollar is such where they can have more direct controls over inflation and deflation, decide how and when and where you can spend that money, and really just have full control over the dollar, which right now the dollar is the most highly used criminal currency. It's used for more crime and just illicit things around the world than anything else. The dollar is the most used for those things. Of course, it's the most used for everything. But the narrative that comes out is, oh, it's a cryptocurrency. It's used for criminals. No, it's the dollar. That's the number one criminal currency. But there's some advantages and disadvantages to digital dollars. You can have more direct control over that currency. You don't have to work a strange system with the Federal Reserve where money just keeps moving back and forth, and it's just kind of backwards. With the digital dollar, you can decide whether someone has a positive or a negative interest rate on the money that they hold. You can dictate how it's spent, where it's spent, when it's spent, and if you have the right social status to spend. So this is where I really see things going in the very near future. And in fact, I think that the next stimulus payment will establish this, where we'll have a digital dollar. And, this is no secret. They've already admitted to working on it, and I think it's getting pretty close now. So looking at all this information here and how right now the narrative is that we have inflation. And yes, we have inflation. And more than likely that inflation will lead into hyperinflation, because right now we have an increase in the cost of labor while we have a decrease in production. We have an increase in demand while there is not enough supply. When you add all those factors together, we're really looking at a hyperinflation environment. And if we enter into a hyperinflation environment for anything more than a short period of time, it will lead to recession and depression. It will more than likely lead to a depression that'll last years. And so that's where I really see things going. I think at the beginning of next year, 2022, we're going to see things keep moving towards inflation. And that maybe when they introduce the digital dollar and send out another stimulus, because the Democratic Party is incredibly unpopular right now, and they got to do something to improve that. So maybe they'll send out the next stimulus and go ahead and get going with the digital dollar, and the increased supply and money will then just spike our inflation up into hyperinflation, and then that'll be economic collapse and depression. I'm thinking by the end of 2022, things are going to be looking really, really bad from an economic perspective, and jobs will be hard to find, and people will be selling their possessions for far cheaper than they thought they would. And this is just one person's opinion, so I could certainly be wrong. So this last clip is just an example of how dystopian our world can be if seemingly the companies that are in charge of the world are able to achieve their agenda. Let's watch.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
Your weekly rental smart contract will automatically execute in 72 hours. Please ensure that your personal wallet is appropriately funded. Your scheduled Uber ride share will arrive in 10 minutes.
So what do you think of your new work pod? Pretty nice, right?
Yeah. It's a bit cramped though.
Oof. That's bad speak. I'll let you sort that out. See you at the mandatory Shibuya roll call dance later today.
Yikes. You have violated your employment smart contract. Replaying offending speech.
It's a bit cramped though.
Guys, you better avoid that bad speak. Have a good day.